Thank you to the government of Kenya for giving us a platform, and to our partners, the World Bank Group, United Nations Environment Programme, United Nations Development Programme, the African Union, and the African Development Bank. Thank you all for your collaboration on the design and delivery of our thematic track discussions here in Nairobi. In this session, I will provide a brief overview of what was discussed across the 4 thematic tracks during this Climate Week, and give you a bird's eye overview of what were the key takeaways from these core discussions. We will then hear from our partners on top priority actions and solutions to be considered as contributions from this Climate Week to the global stocktake to take place at COP28. I will then hand over to my colleague Cecilia Nyenga, Director of Intergovernmental Support and Collective Progress at UN Climate, and our host government of Kenya, for a brief formal closing of this Climate Week. I will kindly ask our representatives from our partners to join us in the stage, whilst I'll be starting providing a brief overview of the thematic track discussions. As we know, we had 4 thematic tracks in this Climate Week. And the first thematic track was focused on energy and industry. Track 1 showcased the opportunities and discussed challenges related to the energy transition on the continent. Sessions under this track were very well attended, as in the entire Climate Week, with many stakeholders always present in the room at all times. We heard during this track discussions that big targets, long-term strategies, and ambition are critical to guide the energy transition. This needs to be reflected in nationally determined contributions and long-term low-emission development strategies. Financial solutions that reduce the cost of capital and allow for easier access need to be scaled up to ramp up renewables. In some countries, we heard lack of regulatory and transparent frameworks hamper progress. So clear policies are needed. Critical minerals, if managed properly, hold great potential for resource-rich countries on this continent. It is also clear from the discussions that local empowerment is essential to ensure a successful, just energy transition. We heard of many initiatives, activities, and collaborative models of partnership emerging on and for the continent towards ensuring that energy transition that is just, inclusive, and sustainable. Furthermore, the track explored the important and cross-cutting role finance plays in the energy transition. This transition requires finance at scale. The sources, quality, form, and purpose of this finance matter. It is also important, as we heard, to ensure that the broad transition of energy and distributed access is considered and receives adequate finance to ensure this transition. Finally, in this track, we spoke about the benefits and challenges of carbon markets as one potential source of finance to enable the energy transition on the continent. And we learned that Africa is well placed to leverage and build upon existing experience and capacities to benefit from carbon markets. Excuse me. Coming up to track 2, which focus on cities, settlements, infrastructure, transparent ways, was recognized as decisive sectors in promoting the system transformation necessary to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. Robust discussions were held in all our track 2 sessions, where we heard that African subnational governments have the plans and the projects to translate national climate change targets into effective local policies and action on the ground. Climate actions should be tailored to the needs of local communities, and here in Africa, 86 cities have comprehensive adaptation and mitigation plans. 56 city-scale projects are currently being supported, and 280 million euros are committed as direct finance. But more still needs to be done. Increased grant funding needs to be made available for local projects already developed by African cities, regions, and towns. This doesn't just benefit communities, it plays a central role in strengthening NDCs in 2024 and beyond. The track 2, took a deeper dive into the role of the construction industry and buildings, which are responsible for 37% of energy and process-related emissions and 50% of materials consumption. We heard that the buildings and construction sector is not on track to achieve decarbonization by 2050. So the global stocktake process should recognize the built environment as a cross-cutting sector that can deliver the transformative change. Track 2 also discussed shipping, a significant part of some national economies. Marine greenhouse gas fuel standards and a maritime GHG emission pricing mechanisms were discussed, not just to green the maritime sector, but also to help grow economies. Green hydrogen investment can spur large-scale renewable energy deployment with collaboration across both public and private sectors. Energy, climate, and transport are essential to ensure the pace and scale is realized. Moving on to track 3, which focus on water, food, land, and oceans, the track kicked off with Africa's vision for transformative adaptation and long-term resilience, and then explore how to achieve this vision. Panelists acknowledge that Africa remains a hotspot for climate impacts and challenges, hence the urgent need to accelerate adaptation actions. Speakers highlighted the need to examine impacts on people, sectors, basic needs, and the economy as a whole. We heard a strong emphasis on the need to change mindsets and ensure that adaptation guides how societies, communities, and countries plan their future. This transformation requires bold actions accompanied by commensurate investments and agile policies aimed at integrated risk reduction, managing trade-offs, and leveraging multi-sectoral opportunities. Participants reflected on the specific challenges farmers face, especially small-scale farmers who play a critical role in global food systems and yet are particularly impacted by climate change. We were reminded that farmers, herders, pastoralists, and displaced populations in Africa are often overlooked and need to be better engaged. A steady progress towards transformative adaptation was highlighted, including efforts such as the Moroni Declaration for Ocean and Climate Action in Africa, the Blue and Green Wall initiatives, and even collaboration with local radio stations and community on early warning services. Long-term resilience in Africa relies on protecting what has been achieved through deliberate investments. For example, experts say multi-hazard early warning systems provide a tenfold benefit by anticipating and responding to climate impacts. It is also critical to leverage the potential of Africa's youth for changing mindsets towards transformative adaptation, local and indigenous knowledge, and wisdom, which works and is trusted by the people. Capacity needs to be built and strengthened to spur innovation and transform systems. Collaboration at all levels on and beyond the continent was strongly acknowledged as critical for success. Finally, for the last track, which is on economies, societies, livelihoods, and health, this track took a closer look at shifts in economic and social systems towards sustainable and climate-resilient development, centered on the value of human and planetary health. We engaged in productive discussions where we heard the need for economic models and scaling of financial instruments that deliver on climate, nature, economic, and social goals. Sustainable, innovative, and regenerative finance can point investments towards bioeconomy and encourage the regeneration of the natural capital. Africans act as guardians and stewards of the continent's vast natural capital. There are successful examples of African-owned bioeconomy approaches that can be scaled up to enhance and increase resilience. The track also examined enhanced civic engagement for African youth, green and decent jobs, and skill building for a just transition. And the climate, health, and air pollution nexus. We heard that frontline communities must be put at the heart of climate-related solutions development. They must be brought to the table and listened to, as the ones who develop solutions often without sufficient finance or other resources. Across all discussions in this track, the need for finance to reach the local level was identified as a major gap. We learned as well that integrating action on air pollution, climate change, and sustainable development is essential to increasing well-being and creating employment in Africa, as well as to reducing cost and relieving pressure on African countries' healthcare systems. Finally, from this track, we learned that building a skilled energy transition workforce requires measures to both increase the talent pipeline as well as enhance the quality and availability of the education and training provisions. International collaboration is needed to strengthen curricula, educator capacity, skills, and occupational standards and skills as regards policy development. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a quick overview of the key takeaways from these tracks. But by sharing what we heard in the rooms in these thematic track discussions, I hope you all have a better understanding of the priorities of the region. Some messages were driven home over and over: the need for finance, the need for new approaches, the need for collaboration amongst all stakeholders, and the importance of a just and inclusive transition. I will now like to invite our partners to share their perspectives on the outcomes of these track discussions. Let me first please invite our colleague Richard Munang, Climate Change Coordinator for Africa at UN Environment, to share with us your insights. Richard, you have the floor.
The Honorable Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate and Forestry, Kenya, all government representatives, sister UN agencies, partners, delegates, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is said that wisdom is like a baobab tree, and no one individual can embrace it. Over these past enlightening days in this beautiful city of Nairobi, the heartbeats of nations with tens of thousands of people from every corner of the continent and the world converge at this iconic conference center, echoing the profound resonance that when diverse minds unite, a forest of knowledge blossom. Bound by this shared destiny, Honorable Minister, we have envisioned a horizon where the shadow of climate change is dispelled by the golden rays of sustainable low-carbon growth. On behalf of the United Nations Environment Programme, we extend our unreserved appreciation to the government and the people of Kenya for being a hospitable host for this year's Africa Climate Summit, held with the first ever Africa Climate Summit. The Africa Climate Week, held here in Kenya, exemplified Kenya not just as a beacon of hope in the fight against climate change, with a commendable 93% of its energy hailing from renewable sources and an ambitious goal to achieve 100% in the next 7 years, shows Kenya not only a shining example for the world to follow, but also as a beacon of hope. During these past days, Honorable Minister, UNEP with its partners led Track 1, Energy Systems and Industries, co-led Track 2 and supported Track 3 and Track 4. And in all these, we had very enriching discussions from nature-based solutions as a means to promote sustainability in African cities, to prioritizing nature-based solutions as the core for adaptation in the African continent, to enhancing investments in critical minerals that are due to increase by 500% in terms of demand, to de-risking climate solutions for clean energy transition, and at the same time close the $3 trillion finance gap, to the need to turn NDC's investments into investment plans, and to retooling our young people's skills, and to changing the narrative where the outcomes of the discussions in the sessions that UNEP led. But one thing, Honorable Minister, that came out very clear was that the common denominator is a whole of society approach, and tapping into the significant non-state constituency in the African continent. Our youth, who are Africa's powerhouse, who are vibrant and their ingenuity need to be tapped, came out very clearly. All these, Honorable Minister, will inform the course correction of the global stocktake outcomes. But as we conclude, this African proverb reminds us that even the best cooking pot cannot produce food by itself. The deliberation that we got from the different sessions and the insights that we got from the different sessions are actually our ingredients. They are our clarion call. They are our manifesto of our renewed commitment to reshape the narrative of climate change, being seen as a liability to be seen as a climate opportunity. And we must stir this pot together because we know that a single bracelet does not jingle. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your insights and inspiring words as